What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Tuesday Morning Tokes. I'm your host, Drew, coming from San Diego, California. Thank you for stopping by, tuning in, checking out the channel. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit up the links down below. And now we can get into the episode. It is November 3rd, 2020, Election Day. Should get interesting out there. And you are tuned in to the best Tuesday morning wake and bake show. Took a little break for Sober October, but I am back. I've taken just maybe about a handful of dabs over the last couple of days, but I have yet to smoke any flowers, so I wanted to do that here for you first. And yeah, we shall get into it in just a couple of minutes. Got a few stories to go over. One dealing with some election stuff. We got a cannabis study and how is cannabis related to increased workplace injury? We're going to talk a little bit more about this CBD and COVID. And then we got a San Diego cannabis story as well. So we will get into all of that in just a couple of minutes. But it feels good to be back. But I will say it does feel good to take that month off, and I did this little running challenge. I was supposed to do a full body workout challenge as well, but I just didn't stick with that, and this month I'm going to be focusing on that full body workout. But I got my running challenge in with the Sober October. I got 67.72 miles or something like that for the month, which is a lot for me. And yeah, within that whole month, I kind of came to this realization. I thought it was going to be a struggle to, do the Real Word podcast, go for an hour without smoking, because I kind of used the smoking as a little break to kind of transition into the next topic or something like that. But it was easy. I still got to basically an hour in almost every episode. So I realized I don't need to smoke in the mornings like that, and I will just save the smoking for the Tuesday Morning Tokes. And yeah, I just realized I'm gonna take a step back from smoking all day. Even though I love it, I enjoy it, I just realized I don't need it like that. And I say that now, just a few days into the new month again. But last time I was doing the same thing, and then my tolerance just gradually got more and more again. But I really want to take it serious this time and just not, go all out all the time. But it is Tuesday Morning Tokes, and we have some flour here that I had left over from last month. So that just shows I can keep cannabis around. I can keep all my stash around. I have my homegrown still in the house as well. And I'm not tempted, and that says something right there. So that's pretty cool. I think this was some OG or some sort of OG. I'm not exactly sure or don't remember exactly what it was. But we will grind this up and get into a couple snaps, read a few of these news articles and everything. And yeah, we'll see what happens. This should be pretty interesting. I took it really easy with the dabs over the last couple of days. Just really small ones, man. And yeah, it still affects me. Not as much as the last year when I did the Sober October, because I jumped right back into it kind of. When I took dabs or took bong hits or whatever, when I came back from last year, from the Sober October, I was like taking hits like I was still smoking. But this time I know not to treat it like that. Have more respect for the flower and for the dabs, man, because it will knock you out, that's for sure, if you're not used to it. And that's what happened last year. But this time I'm taking it much easier, and it should be good to go. Like I said, I forget exactly where this flower or what brand this flower was from. I definitely remember it was some sort of OG. And oh, that fresh ground flower smells so good. Man. Ooh, that's nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So let's get into this. Oh, you might see that candle burning. That is a candle that I made. And that's probably going to be the plan going forward. Making some candles. That's a lavender one right there. And it is a nice lavender scent. Definitely wanted to display that for you guys here. And yeah, let's get into. I got clean glass. I cleaned the bong this morning. Got a clean bowl piece. That's all good. So let's get into this, man. Got the flour ground up now. Take a little snap and get into it. Got my coffee, my Black Rifle coffee here. Man, today is an important day, that's for sure. Election day. I already I did my drop off ballot yesterday. I didn't really want to do that, but my anxiety was killing me, and my dad was able to go with me to kind of ease that, and we both dropped our ballots off yesterday. Kind of feel about it, but you know, at least I can now make complaints about the country, even if my vote doesn't count because there's some shady stuff going on or whatever. I don't know. At least I can now make complaints about the country without anybody saying, oh, but you didn't even vote. So it's like, well, now I did. This is my first time voting for the president, and it wasn't for Donald Trump, not for Joe Biden. It's for Joe Jorgensen. If you want real freedom, get out there, vote that Libertarian Party. That is for sure. She's been doing it for a long time. If you want equality and freedom for everybody here in America, and, you know, peace kind of across the world, that's the way to go. So let's get into the snap, and we shall get into all sorts of stuff. We'll see where it goes. See if I even stay on topic. All right, let's get into this. Cheers, everybody. It's been a while. It has been a while. All right, let's go. Feels good, man. It feels really good. Shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company right there. Man, that is some tasty stuff, man. Flour and wax just hit differently. They really do. Man, just giving that a second to sink in a little bit. Probably take another one real quick. Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll get into reading some articles. Let's get into it. It is Tuesday Morning Tokes, right? I got a smoke for you guys. My first time back. I got a smoke for you guys. So let's get into it. Even if that means I'm going to get high as fuck. Oh well. It's the point of the show. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, it's good stuff. Always love the OG. Still hits me hard, man. Still good stuff. Still tasty. But it's crazy. Just dabs and flour, like I just said, they just hit so differently. They smell so different, and I just love them both still. even with that month off. I'm probably still gonna do that month off every year, but I'll always come back to cannabis, man. I always will. I love it so much. I really do. It makes me feel so good. Anyway, let's get into this. This is from fastcompany.com. Cannabis stocks are blazing ahead of election day 2020, which is pretty true. We could check my account real quick. I got a couple cannabis stocks. Oh, everything's up right now. Oh, except the cannabis stocks. Hilarious. That is funny. But Bitcoin is going crazy. That's almost up to 14,000. But yeah, I got a couple ETFs, and overall I'm up on everything. Oh, nope. I'm down a little bit on that one. And I think I'm down on, nope. I'm up on this one, just like $7. So I got canopy growth, and then I got the MJ ETF. So we shall see how it goes. But I had noticed they were going up over the last week. Yeah, both of them were up over the last week for sure. So that is interesting. All right, let's get back to the article. Whew, I am feeling it. That is for sure. Man, that nose. All right. Investors bullish on legalized weed are sending cannabis company stock prices rising ahead of an election that will determine the fate of a raft of legalization, including the legalization of marijuana. Voters in Arizona, New Jersey, South Dakota, Montana, and Mississippi are casting ballots that will determine if their states will join the others that have legalized the drug, although such initiatives aren't recognized at the federal level. So just these states for legalization. We need more of that, that's for sure. Investors who bet on early poll results that project a Biden-Harris win aren't just being foolishly optimistic. While the current Republican administration hasn't taken specific pot shots at existing state regulations, the Democrats have a three-part plan for the federal government's action on cannabis. A Democratic majority, which would be able to enact legislation, would legalize cannabis for medical use, drop it from Schedule 1 illegal narcotics, and support states in setting their own policies. That's just interesting because it's like I thought Trump was more for the states' rights and all of that, and it seems like he still is, but I don't know. This one's strange because it's like if you look at the Democrats, if you look at both Biden and Harris, both of them have done so much to lock people up for cannabis, and now they're just gonna switch sides and like be like, oh no, we're gonna legalize it now. And even though Biden wrote all the crime bills back in the 80s and 90s, late 80s and 90s, and then drafted the 94 crime bill that Bill Clinton passed, and it's like now they want to switch up, and Kamala Harris had like locked people up for weed and then laughed when asked if she had ever smoked. And it's like, man, what are we doing? Like, don't just focus on that. You know what I mean? For when you're voting, because yeah, I love cannabis and everything like that, but when you look at what they've done in the past, their history and all that, you got to look past just the legalization of cannabis. Even though that is a big step, don't get me wrong, we need to do that, like across the board, especially federally. I've been saying that since I've started this. We need to get rid of that Schedule 1 and decriminalize it, get rid of that schedule, because that's what's hindering kind of the progress of scientific research and things like that, so it's interesting for sure. In an analysis for Yahoo Finance, Canaccord's industry expert Matt Bottomley rated Columbia Care, Green Thumb, and Cureleaf all strong buys that could see significant gains if Biden is elected. Each of these stocks was up between 5% and 7% before the close of market on Monday. Additionally, Investopedia is highlighting Cannabis Growth, Kronos Group, and Tilray as top performers on the NASDAQ. I had invested in almost all of those, and I have Canopy Growth still. I had Crone for a while there. Never Tilray, though. Interesting. Each of these stocks was up over 13%, 14%, and 15% respectively before the closing bell. Crazy. Something else to consider is that regardless of which party and ballot measures win, cannabis purchases have gone up through September in the wake of the pandemic. According to a report in Marijuana Business Daily, it is entirely possible that this trend will continue as some citizens use cannabis to self-medicate during and immediately after the election. In a recent poll, a majority of U.S. adults, 68%, said they were significantly stressed by the 2020 presidential race. That's interesting. That makes sense. Or people are stocking up to prepare for what could happen after the election, man. Today should just be so interesting, man. This is an interesting episode. Smoking for the first time, and it's a pretty big election coming up. And it just seems like either way things could go bad, and I just hope it's all just media hype and it doesn't get crazy. But I haven't even looked at the news yet as far as what it's looking like on the streets anywhere, because some of these battleground states could get a little dicey. But I just hope everything goes smooth, and whatever happens, it just doesn't get crazy out there. But it's scary if you think about if like Biden gets elected and he was talking about mandatory vaccinations, or he's open to it, and then you look at what happened in New Zealand with the quarantine camps, and it's like, if that comes here, man, like that would be so scary, and that's not okay. Like, oh man, scary stuff going on. But then I heard Trump yesterday. I was watching one of his rallies, and he said, "Oh, I'll be with you 4 more years. I'll be with you forever. We're doing things that have never been done before." And I was like, dude, what the fuck, forever? Like, is it what? Like, that really tripped me out, man. So he just says some things that are just like wild, man. It's pretty crazy. It really is. So this is an interesting episode because we have all that going on today. And could be nothing, like just like nothing can happen, or it's going to go down. So it's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen. All right, let's get back into this. Study finds cannabis use is not tied to increased risk of workplace injury. Cannabis is becoming legal in more and more parts of the world, making it more available for those seeking to use it for medical and recreational purposes. But as access to cannabis increase, some worry that cannabis use could lead to increased risks of accidents and injuries at work. And it makes some sense that people would worry. After all, one of cannabis's most common active components, THC, is known to impact both cognitive functioning and coordination. But is cannabis really a risk factor for workplace injuries? A new study from the University of Toronto suggests that it isn't. The authors of the study looked for evidence of increased workplace injury amongst Canadian cannabis users, but they ultimately found no association. Cannabis use did not increase risks of injury at work. The study results may seem to surprise some, but they are consistent with the results of several previous studies on the topic, which have also found no correlation between cannabis use and workplace accidents. That's pretty interesting. See, Canada is able to do testing and do these studies with cannabis. That's why we need to reschedule it, man, and just be able to do some of these studies and do this research. It's really interesting. The researchers on the study used responses from 136,536 respondents to the Canadian Community Health Survey as the data for their experiment. This yearly large national survey includes questions on a wide range of topics, including information about whether someone was involved in a workplace injury and whether they've used cannabis in the last year. Using the data from 2013 to 2016, researchers were able to evaluate whether those who used cannabis more than once in the past year were more likely to a workplace accident than those who hadn't used cannabis. Man, that's weird. That's a weird study. Like, all they could qualify for is if they used it once, and if they have an accident, then they equate it to that. It's weird. The researchers actually predicted that cannabis would lead to an increase in work-related injuries, but their analysis of the evidence told a different story. After accounting for potential confounding factors, they are already tied to increased risk of accidents such as younger age, being male, a history of back pain, migraine, headaches, and work stress. Researchers found that there were no increased risks for cannabis users. They had workplace injuries at roughly the same rate. Researchers also investigated whether the risk went up with the cannabis use for those who were already working in a job with a higher risk of injury. You might think that while cannabis does not increase for those working retail or in an office, it could increase risk for those operating heavy equipment, transporting goods and vehicles, or working in trades like plumbing, welding, or electrical work. If researchers looked only at all jobs together, it's possible the results could be skewed to show less risk factor. To account for this, these researchers also looked at cannabis' impact on risk for these more risky jobs independent of lower risk occupations, but researchers were also unable to find any evidence for increased risk from cannabis use when they looked specifically in these high-risk groups. So that's just interesting stuff. There's a little bit more to it, but I just know from my personal experience, I've never really got injured while working. Well, that's not necessarily true, but cut my finger in the slicer a couple times at when I was working at a sub shop. But that wasn't because I was high or anything. That was just working too fast. And then cleaning the blade as well, and then it's just like, just nick yourself. So it had nothing to do with being high. It just happens, you know? But other than that, that was just at that one job, you know. I never really injured myself ever at work. Like, it just doesn't happen. And I showed up high almost like every day at any job, you know. Like I said, I just nicked my finger on the slicer like 2 times. But you stop everything, clean everything up, but you cut your finger, man, that just doesn't stop bleeding. It's pretty crazy. Doesn't stop bleeding for a long time. Take another little snap. I'm already so high, man. This is crazy. It is crazy. Take this real quick. Cheers, everybody. All right. So this one from the health site. That last one was from Forbes. Um, Scientists find clues to how CBD helps reduce lung damage from COVID-19. So I remember earlier I was kind of covering this story, probably, pretty early on into the pandemic. You can go back and check the previous episodes. But there's been a couple studies that were talking about how cannabis can kind of help subdue or protect you from getting COVID. So I just thought that was interesting, and now it just seems like there's been more information found on that topic. CBD helps reduce cytokine storm that damages the lungs by increasing the levels of apelin, a natural peptide that is known to reduce inflammation, explain scientists. Earlier this summer, a report in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research suggested that marijuana ingredient cannabidiol, or CBD, may help reduce cytokine storms and excessive lung inflammation linked to COVID-19 deaths. Now, the same research team has found clues to how the process works. A cytokine storm, also called hypercytokinemia, is a severe immune reaction in which the body releases too many proteins called cytokines in the blood too quickly. When a cytokine storm occurs, the body starts to attack its own cells and tissues rather than just fighting off the virus. The hyperimmune reaction has been linked to mortality in COVID-19 patients. In the case of COVID-19, cytokine storms usually starts in the lungs, and that's why the lungs get affected initially in most patients. Dang, that's so interesting. So it helps protect from having, dang, that's just crazy. Super interesting. CBD helps reduce the cytokine storms by increasing the levels of apelin, a natural peptide. What the heck? We already read that. Apelin levels are dramatically reduced in the face of a cytokine storm induced by SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. CBD quickly helps normalize those apelin levels along with improving lung functions, the study added. They studied the effect of CBD on deadly adult respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS, model, which had the blood levels of the peptide drop close to zero. Treatment with CBD was to able to increase the peptide levels by 20 times, bringing it back to almost the normal level. Apelin is a pervasive peptide made by cells in the heart, lung, brain, fat tissues, and blood, and is important regulator in bringing both blood pressure and inflammation down, the study authors noted. In their early research, the team found that CBD reduced excessive lung inflammation, enabling improvements in the lung function, healthier oxygen levels, and repair some of the structural damage to the lungs that are associated with ARDS. Now they link these improvements with the regulations of apelin. Even though they did not attribute all CBD's benefits to apelin, they believe that the peptides only play an important role in this scenario. I'm probably saying those names wrong, and that's probably hilarious. Smart people are like, what the fuck? But yeah, that's just interesting. There was a little bit more to that, but we will move on. That is interesting though, because I remember hearing and reading those articles pretty early on, and now kind of hearing it explained a little bit more in detail. That's really interesting. It is really interesting. Shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company. All right. And now it's to the San Diego story. This one's I don't know, a little frustrating, I guess. I don't know. Just everything is just kind of a mess with this one. It says San Diego files first lawsuit seeking unpaid cannabis taxes. San Diego has filed its first lawsuit based on a failure to pay the city's cannabis tax, a new stream of revenue that the city officials expect to climb nearly $30 million annually during the next 5 years. The city filed a lawsuit against Grizzly Peak Farms for failure to pay taxes on cannabis products the company delivered to dispensaries within the city from its cultivation facilities in Oakland between January 2018 and June 2019. With penalties and interest, San Diego officials say the company owes nearly $10,000 to the city. The city's tax rate on cannabis business increased from 5% to 8% in July 2019. The new revenue stream from cannabis taxes could help soften the budget cuts the city is expected to face in coming months because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has sharply reduced sales tax and hotel tax revenue because of decreased tourism. Dave Gash, a San Diego developer and the owner of Grizzly Peak, said Wednesday that failure to pay the tax was an oversight resulting from confusion and that the company planned to pay its city the tax bill immediately. Quote, it's really kind of slipped through the cracks, Gash said. It's legitimate, but it's a weird city tax. We never heard about it, so it was weird to us. Gash is referring to San Diego's cannabis tax extending beyond businesses selling and cultivating cannabis within the city. The tax also must be paid by cannabis businesses located elsewhere if they supply cannabis products to businesses within the city. Leaders of the local cannabis industry say San Diego taxing out-of-town suppliers has led to lots of grumbling, but that Grizzly Peak appears to be the first company to fail to pay the tax. Gash said he only got one notice that his company owed cannabis tax to the city. They haven't been calling us about this or sending us notices, he said. San Diego's approach to cannabis taxes with some other cities also forces cities to use a process called appropriament to divide up a cannabis company's revenue so each city can tax the appropriate portion of the revenue. Man, that's just frustrating. Everything about that's frustrating. Just that there was more to that too, but the fact that San Diego, they're just finding a way to tax everything. And now they're starting to go and collect. And that's what happens when it became legal. And these cities were able to now tax and kind of create these taxes, which is just really messed up in my opinion. Just paying taxes like that is just really frustrating because it doesn't seem like it's legal when you look up the Constitution and stuff. But hey, what do I know? Just interesting stuff. Yeah, that was kind of all I had, man. Wow, the flowers, something else, especially doing a wake and bake. Feels good though. It does feel good. But I think I'm gonna end it there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will be back on Tuesday for another episode of Tuesday Morning Tokes. I will be back Friday for another episode of the Real Word Podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go to @the_No World Order Podcast. I think me and Zach are going to be doing an episode on Thursday. If everything goes smooth over the next couple of days, we'll talk about it. We'll see what's going on. But that is all I got for now. Until next time, everybody. Peace.